This is Saskia, and this is Note to Self, your weekly dose of everything that's simply too long to text. Consider this your personal invitation into my inner circle, where I share my thoughts, feelings, and quiet reflections that usually live inside my Notes app. Thanks for joining me. Love Island has ended, leaving me feeling empty and wondering something. Whether reality TV is harmless catharsis or quietly shaping what we consider normal. Then, I read a study exploring why raves and psychedelic ceremonies might create similar connections to healing. So today, I'm talking about the stories we watch, the spaces we enter, and what happens when we stop observing connection and actually step into it. Hi, it's me, Saskia, and this is Note to Self. Alrighty, guys. Kicking things off today. Not gonna lie, I'm pretty fucking tired. Oh my God, I had to have an afternoon nap, which I never do. I am so wrecked. I don't know what it is. It's just this exhaustion I just can't seem to kick. Maybe it's that there's been these Canadian wildfires, so we're getting all this smoke in the air. Does that make you tired? Oh no, it's not a medical podcast. You guys tell me. But definitely feeling tired. I also got a chemical peel. And this is the day before it starts to get heinous and peel for 7 days. So I'm looking snatched, I think, hopefully, and glossy. Soaking that in, recording the day that it looks great. Not showing you the days it doesn't, but I'll tell you all about it if you're interested. I'm doing a series of 3 chemical peels to help with my melasma that I get above my lip. I think I told you guys about it. So currently it is working well, but it is also a very weird process. And tomorrow I will wake up and not be able to move my face, which is an interesting place to be in. But really, before we dive into the episode today, I have an important announcement. Recently, on Note to Self, I reported on a story of a young dum-dum, me, who 10 years ago slept with a cute Aussie boy only to be ghosted by him not once, but twice. Today, we pick the story back up with an astonishing break. The ghosted victim, who is recently engaged, found that this motherfucker slid into her DMs last week. And with the typical signature fuckboy greeting, well, hello. Oh, and here's the kicker. He slid into her LinkedIn DMs. Hey there, I just want to circle back from our previous meeting. I knew you were just a short-term client, but at Avoidant Fuckboys Incorporated, we have this sixth sense when our past customers are talking about us. And I just wanted to check in to see if you'd like to connect for an updated presentation. Hi there, thanks for the ping. However, I no longer work with Avoidant Fuckboys Incorporated, so you'll have to take your business out or elsewhere. Please don't circle back. Girls. I had to make it into a bit. I kid you not. My mouth dropped when I saw the LinkedIn DM. I had not thought of this man since I brought up the story on the podcast. And in what world does he then message me on LinkedIn? I don't think he's a listener. Like, what? It is crazy that I swear to fucking God, fuckboys always know when you're talking about them. It's actually sick. How is that even freaking possible? I also love that my version of him, he's American, even though he's Australian, but whatever, it worked for the bit. I just lost it when I'm never on LinkedIn either. So I was looking through some of my requests and I was like, why do I recognize that name? And then I'm like, oh my God, it's the guy. I recognize his picture and the well, hello, exclamation point. Like, what? I was floored, absolutely floored. Anyways, this time I'm ghosting him. Not that I should really care. It's literally 10 years. I don't care. But full circle, baby. It still feels fun. LinkedIn ghosting someone is fucking classic. Although I am very against ghosting and I think people shouldn't do it. There's a time and place for it, though. And this is giving the Saskia tick of approval. Ooh, maybe I should make that a segment. My tick of approval when it's okay to ghost. Send in your stories, ladies. I'll judge it for you. Anyways, jumping into the episode, I swear this is going to be the last time I'm going to talk about this for people that do not watch it. I'm so sorry, but we're talking about Love Island. And, you know, it's always a sad day in my life when Love Island wraps up. Sad for me. Happy for Jeffrey. You spend so much time with these people. I mean, the US season is 6 weeks? I think the UK is 8 weeks. It's a bit longer. They have so many episodes. It's crazy. And you're kind of, the last week is always a little boring. So you're kind of start to check out anyways. But then when it's gone, you're like, what do I do with my time? And I debated going to watch the UK season, but I'm just not quite ready to let my US folks go. So instead, I go and meticulously stalk them on social media, trying to soak up any bits of content and watch all of their post-villa podcast interviews. And honestly, just wait for the reunion. But it was something that I did want to discuss today, and not just about how the show ended, because I really wanted to focus on how I think generally this season has kind of made me question my relationship with reality TV as a whole. You know, I obviously love reality TV or certain shows, and I become really emotionally invested, especially in Love Island, more so than I think anything. I find myself yelling at the TV, cheering, crying, smiling, and just, you know, connecting so much with these young people as they go through this experience. You know, when Anaya broke down saying, I picked you every fucking time. At the fire pit, I picked you. With the letters, I picked you. You didn't pick me. And I picked you every time. Literally chills. Oh my God. Every time I hear that back, I'm like, you can't write that. I mean, you can. A great script writer would. But the fact that that was just came out of her, oh, that scene. I was crying. I have never seen such heartbreak on TV before. And this whole concept of I picked you is just so visceral. And then, you know, the bromance between Zach and Bryce, that just warmed my heart. The last episode when Bryce and Trinity win and Zach's like, can I kiss him, Trinity? She's like, no. But I love that. I love their bromance. It's so sweet and so innocent, and just like, that's how, you know, actual great male friendships can be. And also, who can forget my queen, Kenzie, at the start of the season, revealing she is a Gemini moon, which she said makes sense because she gets really emotional at night. Dead. That girl. That still absolutely sent me. Oh, your moon signs being how you act at night. Brilliant. But on top of that, she actually is giving her tons of credit. I loved watching her because she has such a strong sense of self-worth, and just seeing her really like put up her boundaries for bullshit behavior, and when she was treated badly, being like, nah, I'm done, not turning back to it. And I think that really shows that she has, and she spoke about this a lot, her parents who have a really, according to her, really beautiful relationship. And I think when you're raised with that, you're not going to put up with bullshit. So she was incredibly awesome to watch, and we'll never forget her protest splits. That girl, always in splits, gonna miss that. But, you know, despite those fun moments throughout the last 6 weeks, I've been wondering, like, why do we get so emotionally invested as viewers? And what does this show generally make us think about relationships and being chosen? And I think ultimately, we like to see people going through similar struggles that we go through in our own dating life, because it's not just reality TV that depicts these things. Art depicts this generally. And why is it that we like art? It's because it makes us feel more connected to people and the world around us. Reality TV is just another form of showcasing humanity in a way, albeit it can be very heightened and produced. It is an art form. And I think watching it as an adult, I don't necessarily see Love Island as a definitive representation of relationships. I see a highly produced environment where young people have no access to their normal lives and nothing to think about except dating and being chosen and how they are perceived. So, of course, everything is going to feel heightened. And they literally put them in a scenario where they're removed from everything else. So I think I always tell people, imagine what that must feel like if you were disconnected from everything in the world and that was all your attention was on. Of course, it's going to be like that. And I think we lose that. But in this art form, we also see things that people go through in relationships that we also go through. And I don't think the danger is kind of watching it. I think the danger is forgetting what we are watching has been specifically edited to make us feel something. So I started to think more whether watching these types of dynamics is just escapism, harmless catharsis, or is it quietly shaping what we consider normal? And whether the mass majority of people who are watching this, whether they're separating the reality from the entertainment. And I saw a creator on Instagram frame this through the philosophical divide between Plato and Aristotle. Plato was deeply suspicious of theater and storytelling because he believed repeated representations of violence, betrayal, and bad behavior could influence the audience's character and understanding of reality. Aristotle saw drama differently. He believed storytelling through theater could offer catharsis, allowing an audience to experience intense emotions through art rather than needing to act them out in real life. Modern media research has its own version of this conversation called cultivation theory. So the basic idea is that repeated exposure to a particular version of reality can gradually influence what we begin to see as normal. So people argue that if we continue to watch relationships depicted in shows like Love Island, The Bachelor, all these shows that are out there, we start to normalize this as the benchmark for relationships. And when I started to kind of think about all of this more, I feel like all these theories can be true at once. If you watch reality TV and forget that it's a constructed, edited environment and allow it to influence your behavior, it can definitely become dangerous. But if you watch it with a sense of discernment and allow it to be more escapism, then it can just be for entertainment purposes and also maybe something that helps you process your own emotions. However, I sometimes worry that it might be the former. And this has become especially clear to me when I see the amount of hate that is thrown towards these people who go on Love Island, specifically the hate they receive online and on social media. To me, that makes me think that the audience forgets that they're real people and that ultimately we kind of all make mistakes and we're not perfect. And I think there's this really fine line because I sit here talking about this, right? We as viewers should be able to talk about this and have our opinions on it. That's part of the fun. That is part of the fun of reality TV, is to make your opinions on what you would do and why you think they did that. And it's, again, kind of like a social experiment. But I really think where the line is when that discussion goes in as direct hate towards these people. You know, they leave the villa and they are thrust into fame. And a lot of them get destroyed by public opinion for things that are totally out of their control. I have been seeing a lot of the Islanders and kind of sticking up for Zach, and I started to look into what was going on. And apparently there's been all this hate towards Zach online, who was one of the finalists, with people saying that they felt like he should have made Kata his girlfriend, who Kata was his partner when they finished the show, and, you know, questioning why he didn't. And then people were hating on him because there was times that he had kind of let it slip to Kata that I love you. And then he kind of joked it off. So he's getting all this hate from people that he's, you know, not good enough for Kata or whatnot. But I think what is really sad, and this is where I'm like, people are not watching it with discernment, because from what we were shown, Zach has spoken about being compared to his older brother, who was previously on the show last year. And he has often struggled with how he saw himself. And I think that context made me really view some of his joking and discomfort with, you know, empathy or maybe his feelings. I think it comes from a place of insecurity. He mentioned how his older brother was always the handsome one and the popular one, and he wasn't. And that's really hard. They also look very similar. And I think when you have an age that's super close, your brother or sister, the older one, and you often get compared to them, it can really affect your own sense of identity. So I really empathize for him. And it's well known that people often laugh when sharing their real emotions if they feel too uncomfortable. So if he's let it slip out, I love you, and then he's like, fuck, I don't know what to do. He's probably just terrified. And look, I could be wrong. I do not know him. And that's exactly the point. None of us know these people enough to justify the levels of certainty and cruelty that are directed at them. But we can still talk about it just in a kind way and in an empathetic way. And it made me think that maybe this is slightly what Plato was actually getting at. Because you could say that in his theory of this being about theater, So back in the day, people would go to theater. I mean, people go to theater now, but you know what he was saying. And then they go away and talk about it and talk about the show and the actors. And maybe his theory is that people get caught up in that. And that's kind of exactly what's happening now. People are getting caught up in this dialogue and forgetting that this is really just a show. And maybe it's even more dangerous now because people can sit behind their computers and say whatever they want without consequence. Whilst if you're out in the real world, you're probably not going to be throwing these like hateful comments at people. So even myself, I try and be careful with it sometimes because I love to talk about pop culture and reality TV, especially on this podcast. But I always catch myself. I don't want to get too opinionated. And I always am reminding myself that these are just people. Because ultimately, I will never understand the nuances of what is going on. And if anything, I think my opinions tend to lead with a lot more empathy than hate. Because I really think that's the only way that you can approach these things. It's so difficult, though. It really is. Because like even as I'm saying that, I'm like, well, I was kind of hating hard on Casey for a lot of this season. And I don't know this man. And sincere. So it is a really fine line. But I guess I just keep telling myself, like, as long as the hate's not directed at those people on their channels. And ultimately, like, there is an element of discussion that is okay and should be enjoyed. But really, the issue, I think, is not whether we watch these shows. Because theater and art is always going to be a part of our lives. And I actually lean more towards Aristotle's theory that art is catharsis. Art is escapism. And I think the real problem is people forgetting that this is not reality. The work as a viewer should be always reminding yourself that this is for television, that this is dramatized, and that this is escapism and entertainment. And if you can watch it from this lens, reality TV actually can create community and conversation and shared understanding because you see that in all the commentary online. And I think that's actually way more positive. And people gathering to watch it together and talking about what's happening. That's the version of reality TV culture I want to participate in. Conversation, shared understanding, and opinions that are not turning into cruelty. And if you feel a need to go to their accounts and spread hate, I think stop yourself because you wouldn't do that for your friends, or you wouldn't do that, to your friends or your family. So don't do it to people you don't know. So really, the ending of Love Island has made me think about the experiences that we watched together. And it kind of tied, interestingly, into my next topic today, which is an article that I read that really made me think about what happens when we actually enter a collective experience together in real life. I think reality TV lets us watch connection, and a dance floor lets us participate in it. So, moving on. The article was from DoubleBlind magazine. It's a magazine covering psychedelics. The article is called "Turns Out Dance Floors and Ceremonies Heal in the Same Way," and I'll link it in the show notes. It reported on a small observational study looking at adults intentionally taking psychedelics for healing at ceremonies and music festivals. The study followed 85 adults, the average age of 36, who intended to take psychedelics for either ceremonies, raves, or music festivals. 2 months later, participants reported reduced PTSD and complex PTSD symptoms, less internalized shame, stronger feelings of connection, and the greatest gains were among people who experienced emotional breakthroughs, ego dissolution, and kind of the feeling of belonging to something larger. The takeaways that they had was that the physical setting actually mattered less than the quality of the experience. So what is that? Intention, safety, vulnerability, readiness, and who they were with. So you could go to a controlled ceremony or you could go to a music festival, but as long as you did it with intention and you felt safe, you were vulnerable, ready, and surrounded by people you loved, people were having the same experience, which I think was really interesting. But before I go on, I think an important caveat is that this was a small observational study with no control group, self-reported outcomes, inconsistent substances and doses, and there was only a 2-month follow-up. And participants were already intentionally seeking healing. So I'm going less into the psychedelic element of it. To me, it's more the research suggesting that community, belonging, rhythmic music, vulnerability, and these like shared alter states create similar conditions for healing across many different environments. And I've spoken about this on the podcast before, the kind of feelings I have from going to different raves. So it wasn't necessarily surprising to me because I had read research a lot recently that's connecting volunteering and gardening and community participation with improved well-being. One gardening study even found changes in serotonin metabolism, which was so interesting. It's so wild. It's something to do with like some of the what's in the dirt. I'll link the article again in the show notes. I personally hate gardening, so didn't look too deeply into it because I'm not a gardener, but I love dancing. And I think there's this thing that happens when you're moving in rhythm with other people. It creates this feeling of physical and emotional synchrony. Your body begins to respond to the same beat as everyone around you, and suddenly you really feel a part of something larger. And this isn't a new concept, you know. In the article, they quoted Madonna, who spoke about how being on the dance floor makes you feel like you're part of a community without saying anything. It saves you every time, whether you're feeling down, whether you feel like you can't get it right, whether you feel like a failure, whatever. Go out dancing because it will save you. And of course, Madonna last week brought her Club Confessions party to a venue in Brooklyn called the Knockdown Center. It was so hard to get tickets, so I couldn't go, which killed me. But it looked amazing, and she understands why dancing is so important, and she's giving back to this community because look what dance music gave to her. And it made me start to think about my own experience with raving, because I was not someone that went to raves prior to 2022. My first 5 years in New York, I lived in Manhattan, and I would mainly go to bars. And then there was a few little lounges downtown that we'd go dancing at. And I loved the feeling. I loved dancing. I loved getting lost in it was all like 90s and early 2000s or sometimes 80s music. And it was just so, so much fun. And I spent a lot of time at bars. But when I came back here the summer of 2022, I moved back the start of 2023. I was, just here for the summer, and I went to one of my first raves with two of my close friends. And we went to Brooklyn Mirage, which is now Pacha, but Brooklyn Mirage was a huge OG, rave venue in Brooklyn. And we were seeing Ajuna Deep, which is Ajuna Deep. Is that who you're seeing? I think it was them. They're like a DJ collective. And I remember we had Brooklyn Mirage had all these elevated platforms. They got rid of them, but you had the downstairs and then you could walk up these stairs and there were all these elevated platforms around it. And we had found this little area up right in front of the kind of DJ booth, but above. And it had this kind of partition. It looked like they just, those line, like you see at the airport when it's breaking lines. So we kind of opened it and went in, and it looked like it was a private area for us. And as the party started to get busier, everyone just thought that we had booked it. So they were like, how did you guys get this? We're like, we booked it. So we had this kind of little mini area. No one came and told us to move. It was the universe was like, you guys are going to have a good time. And I remember the music being so good and the lights were awesome. And I was with one of my best friends and a new friend who's, I recently married him and his now wife a few weeks ago. So very full circle. And I looked up at the sky and I could see the lights going above the sky. What are those? Strobe lights. There we go. And I was thinking to myself, I already knew at that stage I was moving back to New York. And I said, when I'm going to move back, I'm going to meet someone and this is going to be part of my life. I'm going to be dancing here with my partner. And then literally, about a year later, maybe less than, I met Jeffrey. And my whole second iteration of New York, or second chapter of New York, has been surrounded by raving and dancing and DJ culture. And I think it has become my main form of socializing. My friends and I go out and we see music, and that's really changed everything. I don't really go to bars at all anymore. And all I do is go to raves. And I've just found such a huge sense of freedom in it. And I think there's just something about going with your group of friends, listening to music, dancing, having chats, hugging, being happy. I've just had some of my best memories around this culture and just so much joy with some of these people. And as I see it now, like I'm thinking through all these different moments over the last, 3 years, 4 years, with many new friends, and a lot of them have met their partners and they've come into the group, and just so much joy. There's so much joy. And I think there's something when you get lost in dancing that really does make you feel so liberated. And I really felt that a few weeks ago at the Chris Lake show, which I think I had spoken about to you all before, that something unleashed in me. It was wild. I was a different dancer. I don't know what it was. And I am craving that feeling again. So it's definitely, I really get how like it can be just such a release for people. And I'm actually going to a rave tonight, and I'm just so excited to just like hear music and let go. And it's just such a special place to be a part of. And I just want more and more people to do it. I'm bringing one of my friends who doesn't go to a ton of these anymore. She was like really young. She'd go to DJ things. So I'm like, girl, it's really different in New York. But she's coming tonight. So that'll be really fun. And I just want like more and more people to go out and experience what this is, because it's such a beautiful community. There's also the Burning Man documentary, which is on HBO right now. And it only just started, and it's more into the ethos of Burning Man, I guess. But I got the same feeling when I was there. And I feel like I want to do another episode on Burning Man about some of like the deeper takeaways I've had since I was there, because that place is special. But really, this article was just so interesting to me. And I think it's really cool that they're doing more studies on this. Obviously, there was the big angle of the psychedelic element of it. And there's just such interesting work being done in that area. It's definitely something I've always been interested in trying, whether that's some type of mushroom-assisted therapy. And I know even now, like there's the ketamine assisted therapy. There's different ones are legal in different states. I don't know what they all are, but I think MDMA is another one that they're starting to pass. But they're so helpful, and definitely something I want to talk to my therapist about to kind of understand what you can learn from some of these. Because I do feel like if you approach it with intention, you never know like what it could open up. So yeah, it's been floating around in my head more and more, especially because I'm someone that lives with just so much anxiety. And I had spoken last week about just the feeling I've been having about the pre-grieving of my father. And I started to look into that even more, where when you're pre-grieving, you're essentially going through the 5 stages of grief. You're essentially feeling the grief symptoms, but then the person's still here. So it's like it's a mind fucked. It's a mind fuck. And I'm trying to work it out. And I was like, maybe like there's other forms of like, mushroom assisted therapy that can kind of help you open these new neural pathways to accepting death in a way. I don't know. I've gone off script here, guys, but watch this space. I have more to share on that front. I don't have answers, but all I can say is one answer I do have is go out dancing. It's the place to be. Love it. Anyways, as I wrap up today, I think the question, as I mentioned, is not whether we should watch reality TV or do raves heal us, but they do. I think it's more, though, about being intentional. And being intentional about the kind of spaces we're in. Love Island, for example, is a theater. It's produced, it's edited and designed to produce heightened emotions. You should enjoy it, cry over it, text your friends about it, but still remember that the people you're watching are real people in a constructed world. A dance floor, I think, asks something different of us. It asks us to leave the couch, let go, and just participate. I know that when I go in wanting to be free and be present with my friends and let the music move through me, I notice that I receive something totally different from the experience. And I also know I need both, because there are plenty of nights where I just need to lie on the couch, watch strangers fall in love on TV, and let their chaos wash over me. And then I also need nights where I stand next to the people I love and I feel myself become part of something bigger. And I think really what I kept coming back to was this idea of intention for all of your experiences. Kind of what is that intention every time you choose to go somewhere or engage with media? Because I think that's something we often forget to do, and I know I do, because we're all moving so fast. And by setting your intention, you're really allowing yourself to absorb that experience from a deeper place. And I also think reminding yourself that sometimes maybe the intention is just you need to watch The Connection, and sometimes you might need to turn off the television and go dancing. But this is something I've decided I'm going to try. I want to start setting an intention for a lot of the things that I do in my life and seeing if it makes me more present when I am doing those things. I will keep you posted on how it goes. As always, thank you for being with me, my fellow listeners. If you ever have any topics or questions or anything you might want covered on the pod, reach out to me, DM me on Instagram. And thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. Please share with your friends. I know I ask you every week. Please do it. Okay, speak to you soon. Bye.